It's late, but I should try and get as much of what happened down before my eyelids just slam shut. Went into the CDC in Stovington today. Me, Harold, Mr. Bateman, while Stu waited outside. It was pretty spooky, let me tell you. Like a haunted house. I don't think we'd better say anything to Stu about this room. Why? Because I believe he came very close to dying here. Once Harold's curiosity was satisfied, we went back out, and I wanted to just hug and kiss Stu. I felt ashamed, diary, that we hadn't believed Stu about the plague center, and that we had all complained about what an awful time we'd had when Captain Trips happened, and he'd barely said anything. That's when I realized I was falling in love with Stu. I had the world's most crushable crush on him. And if it wasn't for Harold, I'd take my damn chances. Anyway, that's when Stu told us he wanted to go to Nebraska. He wanted to check on this old lady he'd been dreaming about lately, he said. Her name's Mother Abigail, I think. She lives in a place called Holland Home or Hometown or something like that, in a field of corn. While Harold made his sign, we had a very sober talk about our dreams. Dreams we'd each been having, in some shape or other, about this woman, and about a boogeyman with no face. It's remarkable, but we all seem to be sharing an authentic psychic experience. Once we'd settled on a plan to find Mother Abigail, I'd take her over the Dark Man anytime. Harold suggested we stock up on Veronal and start taking small doses. To disrupt the dream cycles. To stop the nightmares from coming. I plan to palm my dose. I don't know what they might do to the Lone Ranger inside me. Besides, bad as the Dark Man is, I like seeing Mother Abigail in my dreams. She so exudes an aura of niceness and kindness. I understand why Stu wants to go to her. I keep thinking if we can just get to her, everything will be A-OK. Things to remember, diary. The Who. Kool-Aid. Converse All-Stars. Night of the Living Dead. Brr. That last one hits too close to home. I quit for the night. Oh Lord, dear diary, the worst happened today. Let me tell you everything, even though it's no great treat to write it down. Glenn and Stu went into town, Girard, Ohio, in case you're keeping track, to look for food, and Harold and I stayed behind to set up camp and boil some water. We were talking about this and that, and I was thinking that Harold must have washed up at the stream when he went to get the water when... Harold! I was so surprised I fell right off the log, and Harold found it necessary to say, Are you all right, baby? And then it all came out. The bad dreams, the worrying about the baby, my feelings for Stu, the traveling, the stiffness, everything. And I started giggling, followed by hysterical laughter. What's so funny? I giggled and laughed and sobbed until Harold must have thought I'd gone completely bonkers. After a bit, I managed to pull myself together. Fran, I find this difficult to say. Then maybe you shouldn't. The giggles almost came back then, but I bit down on my tongue. Franny, I love you. I guess I knew all along it was just as bold as that. I don't love you, Harold. It's him, isn't it? It's Stu. I don't know. I know, all right. Even though he said he didn't want you, that you could be mine. Now, I have a temper I can't always control, a gift from my mother, and I could feel it starting to strain its leash. Just like giving you a new pair of shoes, huh? No one owns me, Harold. I've met guys like him before, Franny. He's the quarterback who throws spitballs at you when you're reading your composition aloud because it's the best in the class. The guy who goes steady with the cheerleader and thinks he's number one with a bullet. Yeah, good luck with that. Then he just walked off, and it was like he had had some secret dream and I just shot full of holes. Honest to gosh, I felt terrible for him, diary. But he wasn't playing hurt. He was hurt. And whipped. But what Harold has to see is that his head has got to change first. He's got to see the world is going to stay the same as long as he does. Anyway, I'm sure Harold's going to be watching Stu and me to see what happens next. It makes me sick and pointlessly angry to write that. What right does he have to watch us? What right to complicate this miserable situation we're in? Things to remember. The Texas Rangers had a pitcher named Nolan Ryan. There were TV comedians with laugh tracks. You used to be able to get frozen cakes at the supermarket. Sarah Lee were my favorites. Oh, diary. It all happened so fast and it was so horrible, but let me see if I can write it down in some kind of sense. Our caravan was heading towards Indiana when we swept around a curve and came face to face with a blockade. I quickly counted 12 people, 4 men and 8 women. I stopped so suddenly I almost skidded out. You all right, Franny? Dismount. All of you. Whoever he was, diary, he made me time travel inside my head to that state trooper that pulled me over for speeding. I wondered if he was going to ask to see our driver's license next. Dismount, damn it. Now! That's when I thought, we're sitting ducks, and it struck me how odd it was. What happened next took 7 seconds. 1. Glenn was stunned, not moving. Harold was pulling on his guns, forgetting they were in their holsters. Stu's rifle was in his hand suddenly. Mine too. 2. The bearded man, who had just been aiming at Stu, turned around and shot, and missed, at the blonde woman. I screamed Stu's name anyway, diary. 3. Stu was on the ground, on both elbows, firing. 4. 5. One of the other men shot the other woman point blank in the face. I closed my eyes, but I swear I actually heard her blood raining down the pavement like from a storm. 6. The olive-skinned man shot at me. 7. Harold fired at the olive-skinned man. Both shots missed. I was trying to fire my gun to kill the olive man before he killed Stu. Stu, or Harold or me, but it wouldn't fire. That's when Stu got him. It was like Bonnie and Clyde, diary. There was blood everywhere. Meanwhile, the blonde woman, who were these people, was struggling with one of the men for his rifle, while 3 of her companions fought for possession of the third man's shotgun. Glenn sat in the road, as if he didn't know where he was or what was going on exactly. Chaos. Insanity. Once the second man got his rifle back, I thought he would shoot the blonde woman. Instead, he wheeled at the 3 women huddled against the country squire. Yeah, die, you fuckers! Yeah, die! One woman went down. The other 2 ran. Stu fired at the shooter and missed. Come on! Even as the second man gunned down one of the running women. Harold and Stu fired at the shooter at the same time. Both hit their target. The third man, the only man still alive, staggered from the carnage. The woman in the Kent State sweatshirt hot on his heels, wailing on him. Then there was silence. Then the fluttering of a bird taking flight. Then the Kent State woman let out a long, primal scream that I know will haunt me for the rest of my life. We were all in shock after it happened. The 9 of us. Now, the blonde woman was Dana Juergens, from Xenia, Ohio. The girl in the Kent State sweatshirt was Susan Stern. The one who squeezed the shotgun's crotch was Patty Kroger. The eldest woman was Shirley Hammett. No one knew the last woman's name. No one had ever heard her talk. Glenn was holding my hand, muttering, "You mustn't let it affect you. Such horrors. Bound to occur. Best protection in numbers. Society, you know. Society is the key." Yes, Glenn. The grass was still wet from the previous night's rain. White butterflies, sluggish because their wings are heavy with moisture, circled around us. Wiped them out, didn't we, Stu? We blew them up. I guess so, Harold. Man. But we had to. It was them or us. You had to, all right. They would have blown your heads off. By all rights, you should be dead now. We walked until we found a farmhouse, dairy, just off the highway, west of Columbia, over the Indiana state line. Dana did most of the talking. She had left Xenia in a company of 2 men, she said, Richard Darless and Damon Bracknell. Around the 8th of July, they all started dreaming about the boogeyman, a hard case, who was getting an army of hard cases together so he could enslave all the other survivors. And let me tell you, that chilled me, diary. In Williamstown, they came across an overturned dump truck in the highway. That's where Dana and her companions had been ambushed by the 4 hard cases. They executed Richard and Damon and took Dana prisoner. I was the 4th addition to their harem, they called it. Or sometimes zoo. The hard cases had been in the army, apparently. They were moving across the country, killing any men they met and capturing the women so they could rape them over and over. Doc, the leader, was very taken with you, Fran. I could tell. The men kept the women sedated on pills. Uppers in the morning, downers at night. The last couple of days, though, they had been palming the pills, which is why they had been able to fight back this morning. Still, It wouldn't have worked if you hadn't gotten wise, big fella. I didn't get wise soon enough, it looks like. Next time I will. Stu looked at Dana, and then really looked at her for the first time. And I admit it, I felt jealous. She was pretty, despite everything. And I doubt she's pregnant. Oh my God, I thought. I went and did it. I waited too long. Maybe I'm crazy, but I believe Harold saw the same thing between Stu and Dana, and I swear, he was smiling in relief. Ugh. That's all I can write down at this point, diary, while everyone else is asleep, or at least pretending to sleep. Oh, except no matter what happens between Stu and Dana, I will never be with Harold. Never, ever, Harold. Things to remember. I'm sorry, it must be my state of mind, but I can't remember a thing. Where to begin, diary? Harold and Glenn had gone into Brighton to find a CB radio. Dana and the women were back at camp, and I was looking for Stu, who had gone off by himself. Hello? I found him, smoking a cigar that made me think of my father's pipe. Franny, want to share my rock and watch the sun go down? Oh boy, did I ever. That old woman, she's not in Nebraska anymore. She's in Colorado, I know. I said, before I remembered it was supposed to be a big secret that I wasn't taking my Veronal. You're not the only one. I talked to Dana, and she and Susan aren't taking it either. And I'm not. We were all feeling out of touch. In my dreams, Mother Abigail's sitting on a pickup on Highway 76, and she's telling me to move it along faster. There's lots of people with the old woman now, in my dreams. The other people still alive. They're going to her. Or the other one. The dark man. Yeah, I've been dreaming about him too. He's setting up somewhere in the desert. Las Vegas, maybe? And Franny? I think he's crucifying the people who give him trouble. He's doing what? That's what I dreamed. Dana, too. Crosses along Highway 15 made out of telephone poles. People hanging off them. It's just a dream. But I didn't believe the words even as I said them. There was a madman or demon or whatever out there crucifying people. Franny, why did you stop taking a Veronal? Oh, there's no counting on what a woman will do. Suppose not. There are ways to find out what they're thinking, maybe. What? He kissed me, diary, and then we made love, and then we lay in the grass, holding each other, as it got darker and... I've wanted you for a pretty long time now. Me too, but I don't want trouble with Harold. He's got the makings of a fine man if he'll toughen up. There's also the real reason I stopped taking the pills. I thought they might be bad for the baby. You're pregnant? No one but you knows. Not even Harold. I thought he would either leave immediately, like Jess would have if he'd found out I was pregnant with another man's child, or he would hug me. But all he did was look at me, diary, for a long time, and I couldn't help it. I kept thinking of Daddy, and when I told him in the garden, "When are you due?" "January," I said, the tears coming. And he didn't say that I shouldn't worry, or that he would take care of everything, but he made me feel that way, diary, by the way he held me and made love to me again. And I knew Stu and I were together now, and that the others would find out soon, about us, about the baby. But right now, it was our secret. And that until we get to Mother Abigail and the others, Harold can't suspect a thing. Sounds like a line from an old Betty Davis movie, doesn't it? More later. I need my rest tonight, no matter what dreams may come. Franny slept heavily and dreamlessly that night. So did they all, in fact. Except for Harold Lauder, who looked down at Franny and thought, we're in the dog days of summer now. Every dog has its day. He took Fran's journal back to his sleeping bag and read everything. It's late, but I should try to get as much down before my eyelids just slam shut. He felt like the little boy he'd been, the boy who had turned to books, to reading, for solace. He read everything about Franny and her love for Stu. He read and remembered his fantasies about all the pretty girls at Agunquit High, how they would please him. He would chastise them all with small leather whips. Franny had been one of those girls. Every dog has its day. In the hour before dawn, he replaced the diary in Franny's pack. He wasn't careful about it, thinking if she woke, he would kill her and then run. But not to Colorado or Nebraska. To the desert. Harold crawled into his sleeping bag, and when sleep came, it was thin. He dreamed he was dying, somewhere in the desert. High above him, cruising buzzards rode the night thermals, eager to make a meal of him. Then a frightful, vulpine red eye opened in the dark and looked at him, and beckoned him. To the west, where shadows were even now gathering, and their twilight dance of death. Harold smiled all day long. He smiled even though they didn't make it across Indiana as quickly as they had hoped, hitting a horrible clog of army vehicles near the Elkhart interchange. He smiled as they gathered as much firepower as they could carry from the dead soldiers. 24 rifles, some grenades, and yes, even a rocket launcher. He smiled as he and Stu struggled to figure out the rocket launcher, for which there were, count 'em, 17 rockets. "Don't blow yourselves up, for God's sake!" He smiled so much that when the group started bunking down for the night, Franny remarked, "You know, Harold, I don't think I've ever seen you feeling so good. What is it?" He winked at her and said something puzzling. "Every dog has its day, Fran." That night, Harold began keeping his own journal.
Hey Dead fans, and hey Horde, I'd like to thank you for watching. If you guys like this content and you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button and give me a like. Also leave me some comments, I sure do love reading through them and interacting with you guys. If you're feeling generous, please consider becoming a channel member, where I offer special benefits and perks, and monthly and weekly updates for each member tier. Every little bit of support helps, and is very much appreciated. Thank you guys for watching, be safe, till the next time.